Hi, listeners. I am your host, Zhenwei, and May, if you didn't know, is AAPI, or Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And as a young Asian journalist, I want to talk about the rising anti-Asian hate crimes in America today with my good friend, Kaitlyn Gong.
Hi, my name is Kaitlyn. I'm a freshman at Chapman University studying public relations and advertising, and I'm also a Chinese American.
Hi, girl. I'm so glad to be talking to you today, and we're just gonna jump in and get started. And I wanted to start off with, what were some of your experiences with racism growing up as Asian American?
Honestly, pretty alarming considering I went to relatively diverse schools from elementary through high school. I was constantly shocked that other people of color were comfortable making those assumptions that because I was Asian, I was good at math, or that if I was having trouble like reading the board in class or something, that it was because like my eyes were small, instead of the fact that maybe someone's head like might be in the way.
Right, of course, the classics, right? The eye jokes, you can't see anything, which are honestly really not funny. But more specifically, how do you think these experiences really impacted you?
It's kind of embarrassing because for a long time I struggled with being proud to be Asian, which is actually not as uncommon as we might be comfortable with. My mom is an immigrant. I just, I wasn't embarrassed of my mom, but I was embarrassed to not really know as much about what a quote unquote American lifestyle was like. We ate foods that smelled a little bit different, and um, I was always a little bit jealous that my classmates could bring like sandwiches to lunch. But now I'm definitely embracing my culture more by getting involved with cultural clubs on campus at Chapman, such as the Asian Pacific Student Association, and then on a more political side, the Asian Pacific Political Alliance, and learning about my roots more.
Okay, I'm so glad that you talked about you being able to accept your culture more, because I totally get that. It was definitely a struggle that I had, wanting to be less Asian or Chinese, all because I wanted to fit in and I didn't want people to make fun of me or my culture. And, like you, definitely, as I grew older, I am much more open about my heritage. And needless to say, I would say I'm proudly repping my Asian roots like you are, I think, which is fantastic. But let's transition to a more dire topic that is happening right now: COVID-19 and the rise of anti-Asian hate sentiments. The attacks on elders are news that we see almost every day now. But how exactly has this affected the Asian community? How do you feel?
So I hate to say it, but race and oppression wars are literally killing our people. This has all definitely had a huge impact on young Asian Americans, most of which are already struggling to fit in and find their place in such a westernized society. So I grew up in the Bay Area, which is obviously a very diverse environment. I actually believe that the surge might have began in Oakland, Chinatown, which is where I spent most of my childhood. And it's definitely scary because these people, some of them look like my grandparents and great aunts and uncles. Hate crimes against minorities have honestly been taking place for centuries, but I think the Asian community has always had the model minority myth so that they weren't ever taken as seriously. But it doesn't mean that these things aren't happening and that, our community isn't being attacked and hasn't been attacked for a long time.
Exactly, exactly. I'm so glad that you said that, because I remember breaking down in tears seeing these attacks against elders and having this conversation. I mean, having to have this conversation with my parents about how we can defend ourselves in situations like these. And that's why I think Asian youth activism is just so important, and we need more people like you and maybe like me as well, who are, really willing to use our voices to talk about our experiences and to advocate for the Asian community, and to educate those people who are really unaware, or still unaware of things that are going on. But with that being said, what do you think our youth needs to do in order to really deal with this xenophobia head to head?
I definitely think that communities of color need to come together and kind of fight the systematic racism that's been going on. And I think that would be one step in the right direction.
Just because someone places a generalization on you doesn't mean that it's true. If you're willing to have those tough conversations with people who are I guess, exhibiting the unacceptable behavior, whether they're strangers or your best friend. I definitely think it's valuable to everyone that you do speak up and correct them.
Definitely. I think I just couldn't say it better. Culturally, Asians are used to not sticking up for ourselves, and we're always quietly working hard with our heads down. We're smart. That's all there is. But now, especially now, to protect our parents, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, we need to speak up and to inform and educate others who are honestly still not aware. I think conversations about Stop AAPI hate should not be merely just like a performative activism, like to post in like 2 days on your social media, but the conversation needs to get started. The dialogue needs to get started. And I want to say something to our viewers or listeners that if you and your family experience any type of discriminations, verbal and physical abuses, or any other hate crimes towards you, please speak out and actively report these crimes. But with that being said, are there any last notes from you, Kaitlyn?
Yeah, I guess now I just really want to verbalize that I hope that every other Asian kid out there knows that they don't need to fit into any standard that society and or their community forces onto them. Their cultural significance is what makes them special, and it took me way too long to figure that out for myself.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for, again, having this conversation with me, and I am looking forward to more with you, actually. And this is Zhenwei Gao from Etiwanda High School in Rancho Cucamonga, California, reporting through PBS NewsHour Student Reporting Labs.